All right, let's dive right into the heart of the matter, literally. Today, we're talking about the heart's incredible electrical system. This is the invisible blueprint, the code that runs before a single drop of blood even moves. It is the symphony that directs every single heartbeat. So think about it for a second. We all know the heart is a pump, right? A powerful muscle. But what's the spark? What's the signal that tells that muscle to squeeze over and over again without you ever having to think about it? Well, the answer is electricity. The heart isn't just a dumb pump waiting for orders. It's this brilliant, self-exciting organ that generates its own electrical impulses. And understanding this one fact is the key to understanding everything else, from a perfectly normal rhythm to every kind of arrhythmia out there. To really get this, you have to see the heart as being made of two totally different kinds of tissue, each with a very specific job. You can think of it as the muscle and the wiring. So on one side, you have the contractile myocardium. This is the bulk of the heart, the heavy lifter. Its job is pure force. But then you have this amazing specialized conducting tissue. These are actually modified muscle cells, but their job isn't to squeeze. It's to act like the heart's internal wiring, creating and then zapping the signal out to tell the muscle when it's time to contract.
Okay, so how does this wiring actually work? Let's follow a single electrical impulse as it travels through the heart's conduction superhighway. And trust me, the sequence here is absolutely everything.
You know, the fundamental principle of the heart's rhythm is actually pretty simple. It's a race. Whichever part of that wiring system can fire off a signal the fastest becomes the boss. It becomes the pacemaker. And in a healthy heart, that boss is always the SA node. So here's the journey, step by step. First, the SA node fires, kicking the whole thing off. That signal instantly spreads across the atria, causing them to contract. That's what we call the atrial kick. Then the signal hits a critical checkpoint, the AV node, and here it pauses, it stops. And only after that strategic delay is the signal finally released down to the ventricles, causing a huge coordinated contraction. Let's just focus on that pause for a second. 0.1 seconds. It sounds like nothing, right? It's literally the blink of an eye. But this tiny, strategic delay at the AV node is one of the most important, most elegant pieces of biological engineering in your entire body. So why is that pause so critical? Well, it's all about giving the atria enough time to finish their squeeze, to fully top off the ventricles with blood before the ventricles get the signal to contract. I mean, think about it. Without that delay, the atria and ventricles would try to contract at the same time, and the pump's efficiency would just completely tank. And this chart just illustrates that design so perfectly. Look at the AV node. Conduction is crawling, super slow. But then look at the Purkinje fibers way down at the bottom, 4 meters per second. That's incredibly fast. So once the signal gets past that delay, it spreads through the ventricles like wildfire. This speed is what makes sure the entire ventricle contracts as one massive, powerful unit to eject the blood effectively. Okay, so we've seen the big picture highway map. Now, let's grab our microscopes and zoom all the way down to the cellular level. Because the muscle cells and the wiring cells don't just act differently, their electrical signals, what we call their action potentials, look completely and fundamentally different. And all of this electrical magic, this entire symphony, comes down to the movement of just 3 key charged particles, or ions, moving in and out of the cells. That's it. Sodium, potassium, and calcium. The precise choreographed dance of these 3 ions creates every single heartbeat. And here's our tale of 2 cells. The contractile muscle cell is stable. It sits there patiently, waiting for a signal. But the pacemaker cell, it's totally different. It's inherently unstable. It's always drifting towards firing on its own. And you can see a key difference right there in what kicks off their signal. A huge, fast rush of sodium in the muscle, but a slower, more deliberate stream of calcium in the pacemaker. They operate on completely different rules. So let's focus on the most unique feature of those contractile cells, this plateau phase. See, after that initial electrical spike, the cell doesn't just reset right away. Instead, it holds its charge for a really long time. This happens because as potassium is leaving, calcium is slowly trickling in, creating this perfect balance that keeps the cell switched on for a moment. So what's the point of this long plateau? Why do that? Well, this is an absolutely critical safety mechanism. It makes the heart muscle refractory, basically impossible to stimulate again for a long period. This is what prevents your heart from going into a sustained rigid contraction, which is called tetanus. That would be fatal. This plateau guarantees the heart has time to relax and fill between beats. Now let's talk about the pacemaker cell's special trick, automaticity. Unlike the muscle cell, it doesn't wait for a signal. It has these special channels that are always slowly leaking a little bit of sodium into the cell. They call it the funny current. This slow leak causes the cell's charge to just drift upwards all by itself, until, boom, it hits the trigger point and fires. This is the magic that lets the heart beat on its own.
And here's the most incredible part. The speed of your heart is controlled simply by how fast that leak happens. The steeper that upward drift, the faster your heart beats. When you exercise, your nervous system tells those channels to leak faster, steepening the slope. When you rest, it slows the leak down. It is that simple and that elegant.
Okay, we've gone deep into the cellular code. So let's zoom back out now and see how all of this fundamental physiology actually shows up in the real world of medicine and diagnostics.
You know, every time you see an ECG, you are literally looking at a shadow of these cellular events. That little P wave, that's your atria depolarizing after the SA node fired. That big, spiky QRS complex, that's the lightning-fast depolarization of the ventricles. And the T wave is simply the ventricles resetting themselves. An ECG is a direct readout of the heart's electrical symphony. And this, right here, is why it all matters. When something goes wrong with that automaticity or the conduction pathway, you get arrhythmias. When that crucial 0.1 second pause at the AV node gets too long because of damage, it's called an AV block. And when a heart attack causes ischemia, it messes up those delicate ion balances, creating a really dangerous electrical environment. So, if you're going to remember anything from this, let it be these key points. The SA node is the boss. It sets the rhythm. The AV node is the gatekeeper. It creates that essential delay. The Purkinje fibers are the superhighway. They synchronize the pump. And on the cellular level, calcium creates that protective plateau, which gives us the long refractory period to prevent the heart from locking up. Every piece is critical. So, we've now mapped the entire electrical blueprint of a single heartbeat. But remember, this amazing electrical spark, it's just the command. The real work of pumping blood hasn't even happened yet. So the big question we're left with is, how does the heart translate this elegant electrical signal into the powerful mechanical force that actually moves blood through your body? We'll tackle that next time.